What is up, guys? Athena here. Welcome back to Code 3 Life. Today, we are not doing a review. Done a review for the past couple videos, and that is not the plan for today. We're going to be doing a couple things that have been requested that I actually have had kind of on my to-do list for a while to talk about, and we're just going to talk about that shit. So there. First thing is someone in the comments requested a couple times for me to show people how to put on sterile gloves. I don't know. I do not use sterile gloves in my job. I've put on sterile gloves once in my whole life, and I did it wrong. And I don't even remember how I did it at this point. So, sorry. That would be a question for someone with experience in that. But I can show you how we put on our regular gloves. We use these nitrile gloves. We don't use rubber gloves because, you know, allergies. But it's pretty straightforward. You just take the glove and you yoink. And you take the other one and yoink. Taking it off, like, there is a little bit of a technique to it. Because, you know, assuming that they're covered in nasties, you take your nasty and you touch the nasty part of the glove. Don't loop it under because then you got nasty all over yourself. Touch the part of the glove that's nasty. Pull it off slowly, because if you pull it off too fast, you will fling nasty everywhere. Get it into your hand. And now that this is clean, you can reach under and pull the whole thing off. And then you've got like a relatively put together little package that you just like throw in the trash. That is how you put on and take off gloves, ladies and gents. Anyway, so what I wanted to talk to you today about is another kind of topic on death type things. I think a comment was left on my death video about DNRs and stuff like that. So I hope that wasn't too loud. We are gonna dive into that. So first thing, I can really only talk about DNR info from Colorado. States all do it differently, because why would we want to make death simple? So I really only know how Colorado works. Other states have their own thing going on. So a DNR is a very broad term for a document or just some form of thing. Some people have like DNR jewelry and stuff like that. It is just something that tells people, hey, when I die, don't try to reverse that. And then they get very complicated from there. In Colorado, we have what's called a MOST form, which is a medical order scope of treatment. I'll put up an edit if I remember that wrong. Anyway, we have what's called a MOST form, and it is a 2-page document that essentially just talks about everything that they want the doctor to do. Well, a very streamlined version of what they want the doctor to do or not do in the event of their death. People usually don't get these unless they have a disease that is like known to be terminal and is going to kill them. Like healthy people generally do not have MOST forms. They have just like boxes you can check. So if the person is not breathing, does not have a pulse, CPR or no CPR, and you check. And some people have DNRs that say, yeah, CPR the fuck out of me. But then as you go lower, it's like, okay, if I have a pulse but I'm not really breathing, do you want me to breathe for you? Do you want me to perform life-saving interventions? Or are you focused on more like comfort care, like fluids, oxygen, pain medicine, that type of thing? I've seen many MOST forms with, yes, CPR me, bitch, but do not like intentionally extend my life if it doesn't look like I'm gonna wake up. That sort of thing. It has to be signed by the patient, a witness, and the doctor. Make sure you have the doctor sign it and the patient. Make sure everyone signs it, because if it's not signed, it's not valid. And if you're wondering if I've had a family clutching the MOST form saying, they don't want to be resuscitated and me having to go, sorry, the doctor didn't sign as I'm doing CPRs on their dead family member. Yes, that's happened. Sign your fucking DNRs. Okay, so that's that. And there are a bunch of other documents, like, and you can make like your living will, essentially your DNR. There are many documents. I'm not going to get into all of those. I will leave links below if you are more interested in that. And that is essentially how a DNR works. Now, with people who are kind of expected to die soon, it is not only common, but also good practice to have the DNR on hand, because the bird's playing with this toy. Because if a family member says, hey, grandpa did not want CPR, that is not good enough, because anyone can say that. Like, you have the right to decide what happens to your body as long as you go through all of the proper legal channels. So if you are like telling your family, hey, I do not want CPR done on me if I die because that sounds awful, or whatever reason you have, all of them, okay, most of them are valid. Your family just saying, yeah, they used to mention that they didn't want that done is not enough. And I've had fights with family over that too. And some people have like DNR jewelry. That's also a real fucking fine line, because you can buy that shit off the internet and just put it on someone. Like, if I walk in and someone's dead, they have a bracelet that says DNR, how do I know their family member didn't put it on 5 minutes before I got there? I don't. And a huge source of just general angst in the medical community currently is DNR tattoos. Because people will just get a tattoo on their chest that says DNR, do not resuscitate. And it's just like, okay, is that a binding document? How do we know the patient was awake and consenting when they got that tattoo? What if they change their mind and they just can't afford the removal? Like, what if someone just fucking tattooed DNR on their chest while they're sleeping? Like, we don't know. I actually have seen like essentially the most formed document tattooed on their chest with a signature at the bottom. And that is really interesting, and I have no fucking clue if that's valid. Generally, when we have rough cases like that, where it's kind of a gray area and we don't know, we just call a fucking doctor. Because they have malpractice insurance and we don't. Yikes. Anywho, that is essentially how DNRs work. Anyone can get one. Anyone can draw up a document. I mean, they have things that you can print off the internet, but anyone can get a document that says, hey, do this, do that, and get it signed by a doctor and yourself. Anyone can do it. But something else that I wanted to talk about in this video is a POA. POA stands for... Fuck, why am I having so many issues with my memory today? POA. Power of attorney. Fuck. It's my day off. I am not getting paid to think. So a POA is a power of attorney, and they are essentially a person where you have to sign another document, and there are a lot of things that like hoops that you have to jump through to make someone your POA. Not a lot of hoops, but it is a thing with a capital T. And essentially a POA is a person where you designate them and you say, when I can no longer make medical decisions for myself, you up, bitch. You are making all the medical decisions. And this is just a fucking nightmare for me and a lot of the medical community, because here are some issues that I personally have had with just the concept of a POA in general, and also that people in my places of work have had. For example, Wifey Poo is POA. Now, Wifey Poo has been married to my patient for 60 years. Can't really remember a time when he wasn't her husband, has depended on him in every way imaginable for her entire life, has loved and hated this man, and he has always told her he doesn't want CPR done. Wifey Poo, making the completely understandable emotional decision says do whatever it takes to save him, even though he does not want compressions done. I mean, he can't really tell me that because he's like laying comatose at my feet, but she has a document with his signature on it that says she makes all my medical decisions. POAs can make emotional decisions that impact patients' lives because they're emotional. Like, you assign someone a POA because they're a family member, because they're a loved one who you trust. But on the other hand, like, I think a POA should always do their best to follow the letter of what the patient wanted. But I also kind of understand, like, wouldn't you do anything to save someone? Even if you kind of know in the back of your head it's not what they want, it's what you want, and you just want them around because you know that once they die, you're going to miss them so much it feels like you're going to die. These decisions get made all the time. Another example. Grandma is in memory care because she has dementia and Alzheimer's. You know, very common situation. POA is son who lives in Florida. Remember, I work in Colorado. POA lives in Florida. Why this is the setup, I have no fucking clue. But let's continue with the story. Grandma had a little bit of a spill and fell on her rear end. And because this is what nursing homes do, they call 911. So we show up, assess her. She thinks that Nixon's the president and she's on the planet Mars, but nothing hurts. She's perfectly fine. She just wants to get back in bed and go to sleep. Sweet. Because she is not aware enough of the situation to make medical decisions for herself, I have to make one of two choices. One, transport her because I cannot abandon a patient who does not have decision-making capability, or, which I don't want to do because there's nothing wrong with her, or two, contact her POA and get verbal permission over the phone to leave her at the scene because there's nothing fucking wrong with her. However, son, living in Florida, is 2 hours ahead of us. So instead of being 9 p.m., it's 11 p.m. and he's in bed and he's also in fucking Florida. So we call him and we don't get an answer. So, but wait, there's another POA in her file. So we call the next POA. That POA lives in fucking Michigan because that's the state that came to mind in that fucking moment. And she doesn't answer either. But wait, she's got another POA in her file. So we call that person, and thankfully that person lives in Colorado. Now they live, 2 hours away, but at least they live in Colorado. And they say, yeah, why are you calling me? This is what? And so I am on scene with this dementia patient who doesn't even have a sore bottom for 40 fucking minutes trying to get a hold of a POA who is first in Florida and then in Michigan, and then in Colorado, but 2 hours away. Number one, why is the POA in Colorado not the first fucking one on the list? Two, why does she have POAs who do not live in the immediate area? POAs are essentially they're a decision-making brain that live elsewhere. And a lot of the time, POAs make the decision of I don't want them to go by ambulance, I will pick them up, which is also perfectly fine. But why would you have someone who, by the definition of the term, would only be making medical decisions in a critical moment living across the fucking country? Okay, I feel like I have been venting about this for a little bit of time. I'm passionate about it because people are just they're literally handing over their lives to these family members who don't even live in the state and can't be fucking bothered. Why? And the worst fucking thing is when you have POAs who disagree. My EMT school teacher, who was a 25-year firefighter, told this story as kind of a cautionary tale of he responded to a nursing home for a patient with difficulty breathing. He shows up, the patient is comatose, breathing 8 times a minute because she's about to die. And he is ready to do his thing. But POA number 1 shows up and says, no, she told me she wanted to go naturally. She seems to be going painlessly. Leave her the fuck alone. And POA number 2 says, this is my mother. Do anything you can to save her. And he was a new EMT when this happened. So he was kind of standing there like, I don't know what to do. And so he like talked to one sister and then talked to the other sister, and they talked together and they cried and they screamed and they brought all of the family in, and there was a lot of emotion. And by the end, they were able to convince the second POA that like, dude, this is what mom wanted. Stop doing what you're doing. And so he stuck around just to make sure that there had been a decision made, and like tears are pouring down his face because everyone in the family is there crying and weeping over the fact that their mother and sister and everything is dying in front of them. And he spent an hour and a half on scene with this patient who ended up dying. And that is the sort of thing that can happen with POAs. I'm not saying that POAs are a bad thing. I'm saying that POAs are a great idea, because if you lose your ability to make medical decisions for yourself, you should have someone that you can rely on to make those decisions. Like, and this can happen from things other than long-term end-of-life diseases. Like, you could get in a car accident and get a concussion or a head injury so bad that you cannot make decisions for yourself. Or you could, I don't know, step on a nail and go septic and not be able to make medical decisions for yourself. Or a lot of things could happen to you. And so honestly, while not everyone needs a DNR if they don't have like some sort of illness that they know is going to kill them, I think that everybody should have a POA. Because if you have an opinion on what happens to your body, you should have someone who can tell a doctor, this is what I want. And if you don't want to have a POA, you should write up a living will with details on what you want to happen. So, for example, the thing that I have written up is, if I die, I'm 26 years old. I'm assuming that if my heart stops beating, it's because of something that isn't normal. Like, you know, dying of old age. So if my heart stops beating, there's probably something going on that can be fixed. So yes, do compressions. Okay, let's say that I'm not breathing, but I have a pulse. Do I want to be intubated and all that stuff? Yeah, intubate the shit out of me. Because anything that happens to me is probably something unnatural that can be fixed. But then, when it comes to like antibiotics and nutrition and fluids and stuff like that, I only want people to do that stuff for me if it looks like I'm coming back. If it looks like the fleshy ghost of who I am is going to exist on this planet for the indefinite future, but my brain is completely gone, no. You unplug that shit, because I don't want to be around like that. I don't want to be around being able to only experience pain and not be able to experience higher brain function. That's no way to live, in my opinion. I do not want that for myself. I am not making any judgments on what other people decide, on what people's family members have decided. I'm not making any judgments there. I'm saying, me personally, I don't want that at all. So that's what I have written down. Because it's not like I'm waiting for death to take me, but I could die tomorrow in a car crash, or, you know, get a really bad head injury tomorrow in a car crash. And I want my loved ones to know what I want to happen to my body. There you go. That kind of moves me into like part C of my rant. I haven't been keeping track. In my opinion, if someone is assigned to be someone's POA, there should be some minimal form of training for them. Because so fucking often, and it makes me so angry every time, is I will ask a POA, what do you want me to do? And they'll say, I don't know. I don't have any medical training. You do what you think is best. Like, why did you become this person's POA? Because the answer, I don't know, you're the one with medical training, is what everybody else gets to say. But as a POA, you should be able to stand and be like, no, this is what they want. This is the decision I'm making. And I'm not saying that a POA has to be like, you know, educated through 4 years of school or something like that. I'm saying even like an 8-hour course in like basic human function, like how CPR works, how often CPR doesn't fucking work, the likelihood of coming back after you get an anoxic brain injury, that kind of thing. I mean, disease processes, just generally how the human body works when it's not really working properly. Because I don't understand. It's like sometimes people pick the most emotionally driven, least trained person to be their POA. And it's just like, why did you even choose one? You would be better off just letting me do my thing. So if you are thinking of assigning someone a POA, or if you've heard me talk and been like, oh shit, maybe I assigned the wrong person to be my POA, in my personal opinion, you should pick someone for your POA who you are pretty fucking sure will not make an incorrect emotional decision and who have some basic fucking knowledge of how the human body works. Because otherwise, you're fucking yourself right when you're the most vulnerable. So, those are my thoughts on that. I get very passionate about how death is handled in general, because it is one of the least understood and yet most experienced things on the planet in this particular culture, in my opinion. And I think that a normal death, I'm not going to say that I think a normal death can be like beautiful or whatever, because honestly, I think death is sad almost all the time. But I can tell you that a natural death is a lot better than a tortured, dragging hospital death that was unnecessary. Because if someone can possibly be saved, fucking do it. But if it's a useless endeavor, it's just causing that person more pain until they die. And I think that people should have the right to die the way they want, and that they should have the right to say, don't do compressions on me. And that is sometimes not respected because people don't know how most forms work, and that they need to be signed, or that they need to be in hand. Because we'll show up and someone will be sick and the firefighters will turn to the family and be like, do they have a DNR? Yeah, it's around somewhere. Fucking find it. It's not like a birth certificate. It's not like something that you can kind of lose track of. You need to have a DNR. It is a functioning, working document. But it makes me sad when people's wishes are not respected. I had a person that I still fucking think of all the time. We got called to his house for difficulty breathing, and I showed up and he looked like death. I was like, oh, fuck, I don't know what the fuck is wrong with you, but there's something wrong with you. Let's go get the oxygen. And he like kind of shook his head a little bit, and I was like, okay, hang on. What? And he was trying to talk. And essentially what had happened is he had ALS. And ALS usually moves like from the bottom up or from the ends of the limbs in. His ALS had started in his head and worked down. And we ran this call in April of last year. He was diagnosed with ALS November of the year before. So it had only been 5 months, and he had gone from a normal functioning human being to moments away from death. And he was shaking his head, and I said, okay, I can tell you don't want me to do something. I don't know what you don't want me to do. And he pointed to his wife, and his wife produced a piece of paper that had incredibly specific instructions on what he didn't want done. Right down to no supplemental oxygen, like no CPAP, no intubation, no antibiotics, no nothing. He wanted to fucking die. That's his decision, and I can't blame him for it. And I said, okay, Do you feel like your breathing is harder than normal? And he said, yes. He nodded, yes. And I said, okay, I want to help you because that's my job. But I do not want to do anything that you don't want me to do. And I see on this paper that you don't want IVs or fluids or oxygen or anything. I can't help you if I can't do any of this stuff. So, do you want to stay home? And he said yes. And the wife said, absolutely not, you need to take him. And the look on his face is what fucking killed me, because he felt so fucking betrayed in that moment, because it was very clear that this was something that they were expecting. And in the moment where he needed support, his wife went back on what he wanted. And his wife, I mean, they'd been married for 30 years. She was openly weeping. She was very distraught and upset, which is something that I understand. And in the end, she convinced him to go with me. And so we loaded him up, and my EMT was like, hey, do you want to go emergent? And I was like, no. No, his SpO2 78, but we're going to go routine. Cause, meh. And on the way there, I said, look, I know you don't want O2. You look like you're really struggling to breathe. I am not trying to save you. I'm not trying to resuscitate you. I think if you let me give you some oxygen, it will at least help you feel better. And he relented, and he let me put him on a little bit of oxygen. And I called in my report, and I said, hey, I've got like whatever, like 55 or something. No, he was like 60s. Anyway, like 60s-year-old male, difficulty breathing, history of ALS. According to the exam, it looked like he had pneumonia. And I said over the radio, he is refusing all interventions except for supplemental oxygen. And they still took him to one of the big rooms at the ER and did the whole workup. And he looked fucking miserable. And I checked the report, because sometimes we will get ER discharges and diagnoses in our reports so that we can kind of follow up. And he died in the hospital 8 hours later. And he didn't die at home the way he wanted to, and the way he clearly had told his wife that he wanted to. And I find that horrifying, because hospitals don't bother me. I work very closely with hospitals. I drop patients off there all the time. I do rotations there all the time. I'm not uncomfortable with hospitals. I do not want to die in one. That's not what I want. It's not what he wanted. That's what he got. This is going to be a ranty one, you guys, but it was requested, so I can't even like blame myself and say that I'm being self-indulgent. The moral of the story is make good choices when it comes to your POA, and do what you want. Do not let anybody bully you into making a decision that you don't want. If anything in your life should be your choice, your death should be. You should be able to choose if you are saved by the doctors or not, especially since so much of the time, if you're that close to death, CPR and intubation and stuff is not going to bring you back. It's just going to keep your body alive, and your brain is fucked. So that is what I've had for you today. I kind of want to bug the cat because he's been sitting here, but I also don't want to make him upset. So anyway. So I had a great time making my reaction to 911. I don't like that it's starting to grow on me, but there it is. The emotional parts are really good, and I actually enjoyed it quite a bit. Katie Lewis is one of my subscribers. She lives in LA, and she is an actress and is working on her own film. Like, it's all fucking awesome shit that she's doing. She actually made a meme for for the channel. I'll show it to you guys. So That's the meme, and I fucking love it. I don't know if I've ever felt so loved and understood in my entire life. Katie, you get me. Anyway, so that's what I've got for you today. I will be back. I don't know if I'll do a review or another discussion piece. Let me know what you guys want to hear, see, type of stuff. I don't really have any preferences or plans right now. So if y'all have something that you are just itching to see me tear apart, let me know. Like I said last time, I'm still trying to get access to some of the shows y'all have suggested. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. I hope it taught you a couple things, and I will see you in the next one.